Kicked out at 16, she built a $5 million empire. What she dug up in her backyard stunned everyone. Rain slammed against the windshield so hard I could barely see the road. I was 16 years old, sitting on a torn suitcase outside a gas station at midnight, holding $43 and a dead phone. And my father had just told me never to come back. Not leave for a while. Not cool off. Never come back. The crazy part? 3 hours earlier, we were eating meatloaf together like a normal family. Then Dad found the scholarship letter. Harvard's summer business program. Full ride. I still remember the way his face changed when he read it. Like someone had personally insulted him. "You think you're smarter than this family now?" he asked. I laughed nervously because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. My stepmother Denise folded her arms and leaned against the kitchen counter with that tiny little smile she always wore when bad things happened to me. "She's been disrespectful for years," she said softly. "That woman could turn poisoning someone into a bedtime story." Dad slammed the letter on the table. "You planning to leave us behind?" "No," I said quickly. "It's 6 weeks." "You embarrassed me in front of everyone at church," he snapped. "Always acting better than us." I stared at him, completely confused. I worked 2 jobs. I got straight A's. I paid for my own clothes. What exactly was I acting superior about? Then Denise delivered the final bullet. She told Megan she'd never end up trapped in this town. Megan was my stepsister, and that sentence? Completely true. Apparently, honesty was my biggest crime. Dad pointed at the front door. "Get out." At first, I thought he just meant for the night. Then he grabbed my backpack and threw it onto the porch, along with my shoes and my mom's necklace. The only thing she left me before she died. I stood there frozen, while Denise watched like she was enjoying live theater. "You heard your father," she said. I wish I could tell you I screamed, or fought back, or gave some dramatic speech. I didn't. I just picked up my stuff and walked into the rain. Funny thing about rock bottom? Your brain still worries about stupid things. Mine kept thinking, I forgot my toothbrush. That's what I thought while becoming homeless. I spent that first night at a gas station because the cashier felt sorry for me. He let me sit near the coffee machine until morning. At around 4 a.m., he handed me a stale blueberry muffin and said, "Kid, whatever happened, don't let it decide who you become." I never forgot that. Especially because my own father had never said anything half that kind to me. The next morning, I called my Aunt Teresa from a borrowed phone. She lived 2 states away and hadn't spoken to Dad in years. The second she heard my voice, she said, "What did your father do now?" That should tell you everything. 3 days later, I was living above her tiny hair salon in Ohio, sleeping on a fold-out couch beside boxes of perm solution and hairspray. It smelled like burnt chemicals and regret. But it was safe, and safety felt luxurious. Aunt Teresa didn't ask me to pay rent. She only gave me one rule. If you're gonna survive, she said, stop waiting for someone to rescue you. So I stopped. By 17, I was managing online orders for a local boutique. By 18, I'd built their entire website myself after watching free tutorials at night. By 19, I launched my own online vintage clothing store with $800 and blind confidence. And somehow, it exploded. Orders came from everywhere. California, New York, Texas. Even celebrities started wearing pieces from my shop. At 24, my company crossed $5 million in revenue. $5 million. Meanwhile, Dad still lived in the same peeling house with the same broken porch swing and the same bitterness eating him alive. For 8 years, he never called, never apologized, never asked if I survived.
Then one morning, I got a voicemail from my hometown, and everything changed. But before I tell you what was in that voicemail, tell me, where are you watching from? I'm curious to know. Because what happened next, nobody saw coming. And what my father dug up in his backyard would leave the entire town speechless.
The voicemail came at 6:12 in the morning. I almost deleted it without listening. The number was unfamiliar, and by that point, my phone got more spam calls than actual human affection. But something made me press play. A shaky male voice whispered, "You need to come home. Your father found something in the backyard, and people are talking." Then the call cut off. No name, no explanation, nothing. I sat there in my penthouse kitchen holding cold coffee while Manhattan glittered outside my windows like a movie set. 8 years. 8 years without hearing a word from that town. And suddenly they wanted me back? Absolutely not. I deleted the voicemail. Then I spent the entire day pretending it didn't bother me, which worked perfectly, for about 11 minutes. By afternoon, curiosity had crawled into my brain like termites. What exactly could someone dig up in a backyard that made people call me after nearly a decade? A body? Money? Evidence? Jimmy from accounting suggested maybe Dad uncovered buried treasure. Maybe he found pirate gold, he joked. Yeah, I replied. In rural Kentucky. Captain Jack Trailer Park. He laughed so hard coffee came out of his nose. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory came back. Dad screaming, Denise smirking, walking through rain with nowhere to go. The worst part? A small piece of me still wanted answers. So 2 days later, against all logic and emotional self-respect, I drove back home. The town looked exactly the same. Same cracked sidewalks, same rusted gas station sign, same diner where everyone over 40 somehow knew everyone else's business. When my black Mercedes rolled through Main Street, people actually stopped walking. One man nearly dropped his groceries. Apparently, success looks suspicious when it comes from someone they threw away. I checked into the only motel in town. The owner stared at my designer luggage and blinked twice. You a celebrity or something? Emotionally exhausted, I answered. He nodded slowly, like that made perfect sense. By evening, rumors were already spreading. I heard whispers everywhere. She came back. That's his daughter? She's rich now. One lady at the grocery store followed me through 3 aisles pretending to compare canned beans. Ma'am, if you inspect kidney beans that intensely, you either need therapy or a hobby. Finally, I drove past Dad's house. The place looked worse than I remembered. Paint peeling, grass overgrown, roof sagging slightly on one side. Like the house itself had given up trying. And there he was, my father. Older, gray-haired, digging in the backyard beside a giant muddy hole. I stayed inside the car, watching him through the windshield. For a second, I saw the man who taught me how to ride a bike. Then I remembered he also taught me abandonment. Balance. He looked up suddenly, straight at me. Even from 50 feet away, I saw shock hit his face. The shovel slipped from his hand. For one strange moment, neither of us moved. Then Denise stepped out onto the porch. And somehow she looked even more evil than before. That woman aged like expired milk. Her eyes narrowed the second she recognized me. Dad started walking toward the road. I almost drove away. I probably should have. But before he reached my car,
Another truck pulled into the driveway fast enough to spray gravel everywhere. A tall man jumped out. Sheriff Nolan. My high school boyfriend's father. Great. Small towns really are horror movies with casseroles. He spotted me immediately.
"Claire," he said carefully, "you picked one hell of a time to come home." I stepped out of the car slowly. What's going on? The sheriff looked at my father, then at the giant hole in the backyard, then back at me. "You really don't know?" "No." A long silence followed. Wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. Then Sheriff Nolan lowered his voice. "This morning, your father dug up a metal box." I frowned. "So?" His expression tightened. "It had your mother's name on it." My stomach dropped instantly. Because my mother died 20 years ago. And according to my father, she never left anything behind. But the sheriff's next sentence changed everything. "There was also a letter inside," he said. "And based on what it says, your entire life may have been a lie." I couldn't breathe. The world suddenly felt too loud, too bright, too small. Sheriff Nolan held the metal box carefully, like it might explode. Dad stood behind him, looking pale enough to collapse. And Denise? Denise looked terrified. That alone told me the letter was real. Because evil people only panic when truth shows up uninvited. "What letter?" I asked quietly. Dad opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Sheriff Nolan finally handed me a folded envelope, sealed inside a plastic evidence bag. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped it. Written across the front in faded blue ink were 4 words. From my daughter, Claire. My mother's handwriting. I knew it instantly. I hadn't seen it since I was 6 years old, but somehow my heart remembered before my brain did. Suddenly, I was crying. Not graceful movie crying either. Ugly crying. The kind where your chest hurts and your nose betrays you publicly. I opened the letter carefully, and the first sentence shattered me. "If you are reading this, your father lied to both of us." I looked up slowly at Dad. He couldn't even meet my eyes. The letter explained everything. 20 years earlier, my mother discovered she was dying from cancer. Before treatment started, she secretly placed money, documents, and letters inside the metal box, planning for me to receive them when I turned 18. But she hid it because she no longer trusted my father financially. Apparently, Dad had gambling debts nobody knew about, including her. Then came the line that made my knees weak. "I caught your father trying to forge my signature 2 weeks before my surgery." I stared at him in disbelief. Dad started crying immediately. Too late for tears now. Way too late. The letter continued. My mother had left me everything she owned. Life insurance. Savings. Land she inherited from her parents. Nearly $400,000. Back then, that was enormous money. Enough to change an entire life. Enough to keep a 16-year-old girl from sleeping at a gas station. My vision blurred again. Dad had known. All these years. He knew. "You told me she left nothing," I whispered. He finally spoke. I panicked. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because sometimes pain becomes so massive, your brain converts it into comedy for survival. You panicked for 8 years? Denise suddenly stepped forward. He was trying to protect the family. The family? I snapped. You threw me out during a thunderstorm. She folded her arms immediately. There are 2 sides to every story. Oh, good, I said. Maybe prison will enjoy yours. Sheriff Nolan coughed to hide a smile. Turns out the metal box also contained financial records. Old bank statements, forged documents, withdrawals. Everything. Dad had secretly drained almost all the money years ago trying to cover debts and failed business schemes. And Denise knew about it. That explained why she looked ready to pass out. Fraud tends to ruin a person's moisturizer. Dad sat down heavily on the porch steps and buried his face in his hands. I was ashamed, he muttered. No, I said quietly. You were selfish. Silence hit the yard. Heavy silence. The kind that changes relationships permanently. Then Dad looked up at me with tears running down his face. I never thought you'd succeed without it. That sentence hurt more than everything else combined. Because he truly believed I'd fail. He expected me to disappear. Instead, I built the life he thought I could never survive long enough to reach. And suddenly I realized something important. I didn't come back for revenge. I came back for freedom. For proof that none of this was ever my fault. The next few months destroyed the town gossip machine completely. Sheriff Nolan opened an investigation. Dad eventually sold the house to repay what remained legally possible. Denise left him the second the money disappeared. Somehow that felt beautifully poetic. And me? I used part of my mother's recovered land to build something she would have loved. A women's shelter for homeless teens, especially girls abandoned by their families. The first room inside that shelter has one sentence painted across the wall. Don't let pain decide who you become. The gas station cashier said that to me 8 years earlier. Funny how strangers sometimes save us more than family ever does. And every now and then I drive past my old hometown and smile. Because the girl they threw away, she became the woman nobody could destroy. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional stories with shocking